we came and we settled here, and we pushed our way of life on tangata Māori, on the Māori people. And we've set up systems that benefit us the entire way through. So everything that we do is built on Pākehā ways. So it relates to business, because we need to know that the way we do business it's inherently racist, because it is built on an ideal that we brought with us when we colonised this country.
This is Down to Earth Conversations, where we hear from ordinary people who are helping to bring a bit of heaven down to earth. Kia ora, welcome to another episode of Down to Earth Conversations. No mai, haere mai, you're very welcome. I'm your host, Andy Dixon, and it's good to have you with me. This podcast is about talking to people who are using their skills and experiences in their context to make a difference in the world. And today's guest not only does that herself, but helps others to do that through their businesses as well. Sel Leigh runs Leigh Development, where she gets alongside people wanting to make an impact in the world through business, and she helps them to achieve that goal. But if I said this was a conversation about business coaching and mentoring, I would be doing Sel a huge disservice, because what Sel is doing goes so much deeper than that. We talk about diversity and inclusion, the effects of colonisation even on the way we do business, and about how she gets alongside people, encouraging them into and then along on their own decolonisation journey. We also talk about why Sel is keen for people to know that charities aren't the only way to have an impact, and whether or not it's all worth it in the end. It's a truly inspiring and very challenging kōrero. This is episode 54 of Down to Earth Conversations. Here's Sel Leigh. Well, it's my privilege today to be talking to Sel Leigh. Kia ora, Sel.
Kia ora, Andy.
No hea koe. Who are you? Where are you from?
Ko Sel tōku ingoa, he kaitohu toi whakahaere I Leigh Development. I'm Sel, I'm the lead strategist at Leigh Development. We are a tangata tiriti organisation that supports impact into business and not-for-profits.
And you're a mum as well?
I'm a mum of three. I've got a 6-year-old Darcy, nearly 4-year-old Jonty, and tomorrow I'll have a 1-year-old Huxley.
Wow, celebrate a year with 3.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. Those first birthdays are more about the parents than the kids, eh?
Do you know what? We did massive for Darcy when she was born, but Jonty's never had a birthday party. She's having her first big party this year, and Huxley will have cake.
Yeah. We just kind of did family stuff, and now's got some when they were 5, and then we did one when they were 6, because that was the first time they really had school friends, and then they didn't get another one until they were 10, which Sophia got end of last year, and Mackenzie will get early next year. So,
to be fair, the first birthday with Darcy, we just said we're never doing that again, and then each year she asked for one, so she got it, whereas Jonty's only just started to like people now. So now she's asking.
Kids are so different. So your role with Leigh Development, it sounds like, even just in your brief description there, it sounds like quite a diverse thing. Yeah. Do you want to describe a bit about what you do as part of that?
So it's really big. So I break our business down into 2. There is the business arm of it, which is coaching and support for people that are trying to find their way in business. And I've niched down into specialising in impact, because I find that the people I talk to inherently want to do good in the world. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit as well and talk about the other arm. The other arm is not-for-profit support. So this all came about, I've been supporting businesses for over 20 years, educating not-for-profits on how to start up and educating businesses on how to start up. And I thought I knew quite a lot, and I had a situation where I needed to create some impact in the world, and I set up a charity. And I learned really quickly that I actually knew very little, but by that stage I was really committed and putting in all the hours, and I burnt out. So I was operating my own business by that stage, but I redid my business in reflection of my own experience, to teach people that actually you don't need to run a charity to change the world. You can do it via a business and make some money doing
Yeah,
it,
right.
and actually create better impact. So in the business arm, we teach people how they can integrate impact within their organisation. I focus heavily on diversity and inclusion when I'm teaching people. And in the not-for-profit space, we teach them how to be sustainable. Because most people have an idea, they start a charity, they set it up, and then they realise that actually, although that was hard, that was the easiest part of the entire journey.
Yeah. And that if you want to have an impact, you've actually still got to be around to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And most people, by the time they get to me, they are starting to unravel and hit rock bottom pretty hard.
Is some of that their hopes and dreams were too big, or is some of it just that they don't know where to get the support?
Bit of both. Yeah, it's a bit of both. I attract a lot of creatives, and I find with them they've got this incredible idea and everyone is behind them, but once they get to the point where they need to scale, they can't sustain the growth that they have gotten to, but they don't know where to go to get the support to actually make it bigger.
Yeah.
And so they spiral downwards, because if you grow too fast, then you don't have the systems in place. People get disappointed. The customer journey is terrible, and all of a sudden people go, well, that's too big. I'm not ready to be involved in that.
Yeah, I think actually for our business, we were just lucky that Bex had done that creative kind of getting things up and running, and it was growing. And then my redundancy journey came at a point where it made sense for me to jump on board, and we had that redundancy payout to kind of tide us over a little bit, so I could just jump in and have a crack and see what happened. And then I could bring in the systems and things that, as a super creative person, wasn't necessarily her strong point. But yeah, I can totally get why others who it didn't work like that for would end up in a place where it was just hard.
Yeah, and it's really hard on them, and you can see it. There's a lot of tears when we first start working. So a lot of what I do with the not-for-profits is actually setting their governance up correctly.
Right.
So we get their boards up and running and making sure, because a lot of the people that volunteer to do this aren't experienced, and they think they know how to run a governance board, but actually that's got its own set of challenges, the legal culpability and knowing that you're actually doing things right. It's more than just turning up to a meeting or saying, yeah, we can apply for funding, especially post-COVID, because funding is just not available the same way as it used to be.
I think that's something I learnt in one of my roles. I worked for Pathway Trust, who do prisoner reintegration stuff, and I worked for their employment wing, Oaktree, who employ guys who have come out of prison, try and get them a foot in the employment door. And I burnt out through that. I went into depression, a whole lot of stuff was part of my journey there. And the big learning I got from it was that you can totally 100% believe in something and not be the right person for that particular role.
Yep.
And so I could come away from that going, actually, I'm going to keep championing that and telling people about it and celebrating it, but actually I'm not the one that needs to be on the ground doing the stuff. And I could see it the same sort of thing, with the boards, that people are like, well, I believe in this.
Yeah.
But actually that's not always enough. You need the knowledge, you need the experience in behind that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have the system set up to support people, then your goodwill doesn't really count for a huge amount.
Yeah. How did you get into, like you said, you've been doing coaching, development stuff for like 20 years. How did you end up doing that? What were you doing before that? How did that path... Did you just kind of fall into it? Or?
Yeah, I kind of did. I worked for government for 13 years, and then the earthquakes happened, and I got redeployed, and I worked in economic redevelopment. So my role was to help businesses start up, but successful businesses that were actually viable before the earthquake. And so it was, what I discovered really quickly is that though these businesses had been successful, it was accidental success for a lot of them.
Right.
They'd never had the planning or the structure in place. They just happened to have an idea and be in the right place at the right time. A lot of them didn't have insurance. Majority of businesses we worked with did not have insurance. And so that was a real financial hit for many of them. They didn't have what they needed to have in place to move and to restart. But more than that, they didn't know who their clients were. They didn't know who their ideal customer base was, and they couldn't really define what it was that they did. An exception to that would be Harper. Moores knew exactly when she did hers. So supporting them through to rediscover who their client base was, to restart their businesses, to move where they were, and to negotiate with insurance was a pivotal moment for me. I realised that I wasn't actually that happy working for government. I wanted to go out and help people in need instead of just chasing people for their obligations. So I set in motion a plan. I eventually left. I went and managed a bank and discovered that wasn't really it either.
Yeah.
And then we got pregnant. And while on maternity leave, I was a bit bored. So I started volunteering. And I started working more heavily with the business mentors clients that I had been working, so I volunteered with them as well, and realised that still wasn't quite it, but I needed to keep my head busy. So I started charging for what I was doing for other people, and there was quite an uptake in it. So I was really just putting my skills to use.
I like that idea though, that going, actually this feels like sort of it, but not quite it, so let's keep just digging around here, because I think it's pretty easy to settle when it's kind of almost it. You're like, oh, I'll just grab that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't right. So I was doing a lot. I got referred a lot of clients in startup, but it really didn't feel like what I wanted to do. And so eventually I got introduced to a couple of people who wanted to go out and create some more good. And they were all going to the charity route. No, we're not going to do that. So we talked them through how they could actually make an impact another way. So my business has evolved a lot over the last 5.5 years. And I think it's the last 3 years that have been really, they've really impacted on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even since COVID has changed significantly again. I can help startups, but I'm better working with people who have already got a business in place and are stuck. It's not going the way they expected it to go. They want to do better than they had been doing. And the charities, again, they're in place and they need that help now. So I'm better to unpick the pieces and help them to put the structure in place than I am to help someone with a startup. I enjoy it more.
You say that your work is underpinned by diversity, equity and inclusion. What's the focus on that? Like, what brought that about?
A really strong sense of social justice.
Yep.
And I guess I've always had that, but again, that's that COVID thing. That's really brought it out for me. During the first lockdown, I saw a video on my LinkedIn feed, and it was Tāne Māori teaching people how to speak te reo. And I looked at that and I went back and I watched that video quite a few times, and then I realised that he did one quite regularly. So I chased up, kept watching, kept following, and eventually got in contact with him. And Tūro Kawa Bartlett and his wife Amy run an organisation called Manovation. And that spoke really strongly to me. That that stage they were a social enterprise that were teaching people to speak te reo, basic, but actually to understand with a te ao Māori perspective on it. And they did it through Patreon. So you paid for a subscription and you got some te reo lessons. You got to come together with other people once a week. At that stage we were meeting on Sundays, and they put out videos for free. But the money that they used from this went towards teaching Māori who had their language displaced. Yeah. And so it was about reclamation for them. And that... It came back to a long time love for me of te reo Māori and Māori culture, and realising, I'd always taught people to do the right thing, but actually I didn't understand as much as I needed to. Te reo Kawa's enabled me to learn a lot more, and so for me the diversity, equity and inclusion, that's about the decolonisation journey that we all need to undergo in order to actually allow people, well not allow, but enable people to reclaim themselves, because you and I are directly, indirectly responsible for this language being torn from people. You know, from that from that shame of them not being able to go back and learn. Because a lot of people will say, go and learn your language. But it's not as simple as that. You know, 3-4 generations ago, we tore it from them. We punished them for speaking it. You know, people's parents are still alive that experience that. Yeah. And so that's the diversity, equity and inclusion that I teach. It's about being responsive treaty partners and understanding what te tiriti or waitangi means and knowing that it's not actually the same thing as the Treaty of Waitangi, and understanding how you can put that into play in your business and do that responsibly and not just quoting shit that you've learnt at work, because I was guilty of that as well. That's a really long answer to your question.
I think that shame thing is something that those of us who are Pākehā just don't necessarily get.
No.
But when I did te reo classes, it seemed to be the older Māori in the class who struggled the most.
Yep.
And that was because not only were they trying to learn this language, but they had the shame of not already knowing it attached to that. And it just, I could see it was breaking them.
Yeah.
And yet here they were determined to try and get it back. And yet I was just going, hey, this would be a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it didn't come with any of that.
No.
You know, and it was I could choose to do it or not. And yet for them, they never had the choice.
No.
And yet now they do have the choice, but it comes with all of that shame and all of that baggage, and especially if they've got whānau that can kōrero Māori, and they can't, you know, then even more so.
Yeah, understanding that and knowing that it's actually just as bad for us to go and learn that and then parade that around. You know, we need to understand that it's not just the words, the kupu that we're saying, it's actually, there's more to it. It's understanding why we say what we say, because then that creates safety for other people. And I say safety because if we're just talking about how we know te reo Māori, and then we've got Māori over there who aren't able to speak te reo Māori, then you open yourself up. And it's not creating safe spaces for them. It's a big thing to unpack.
Yeah. So I mean, I've heard you talk on your Instagram and stuff about how you would now describe some of what you do, or the kind of the guts of what you do, as actually a decolonisation journey. Do you want to just explain? You know, we were just talking about business coaching and doing good in the world, and now we're talking about decolonisation. How do those things fit together?
Yeah, so decolonisation is the process of understanding, I guess, colonisation and what the impact of that is on people. So a really huge topic, but basically Pākehā came and settled in Aotearoa, and I deliberately use Māori kupu, the words, to describe the process. So we came and we settled here, and we pushed our way of life on tangata Māori, on the Māori people, and we've set up systems that benefit us the entire way through. So everything that we do is built on Pākehā ways. They're not built on Māori ways, and they don't work. They don't work for Māori, and that's why we have huge health discrepancies. It's why we have structural inequities in the system. It's why, you know, that old running joke that most of the people on the dole are Māori. It's not a joke. It's actual life, because we set up our systems, forced it on Māori, and forced our language and our culture and our way of doing everything on them. So it relates to business, because we need to know that the way we do business it's inherently racist, because it is built on an ideal that we brought with us when we colonised this country. So decolonisation is a process of understanding that, recognising it, and taking steps to create changes that will make it more fair and equitable for others. The inclusion comes when you create the diversity, and the equity comes when you have an inclusive workspace. And it's not just a case of, okay, so we need to speak te reo Māori, we need to chuck a karakia in here, and we need to bless some food, and we need to get some Maori guy, so we need to get some Māori in here to open up a meeting. It's understanding actually why those practices occur for Māori, when it's appropriate to have them in play, and then to understand that it's not just having those people there and those practices, but actually what they mean. What significance do they hold, and how does that create fairness for all? Yeah, it does. It's a huge topic, and it's not just as simple as saying, okay, so we need to understand some language.
Yeah.
There's some really good resources out there. There are some really good resources out there, and I highly encourage people to read to find out.
I think, and that's really important, because I mean, even just the fact that you use the word racist, for some people now listening to this, they'll be a bit...
Oh, they're going to get angry and
Yeah.
they'll be jumping up and down, and they will absolutely... It's not me. I'm sorry, it is you, because you're just as racist as I am, because we can't help it. It's the culture that we grew up in. So no matter how anti-racist you think you are, until you have actually walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, you still have a racist bone in your body.
And some of that's because, even if we don't realise it, we're operating within and supporting the structures that exist.
Yep, absolutely. And our language, our foundation of our language is built on racism. There are so many other terms that we use in language every single day that have racist histories. It's... Yeah, once you start looking, you can't unsee it. And the trick is that you've got to actually actively be anti-racist every single day of your life. It's not as simple as, okay, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
Because I am.
And if your bar for being racist is actively hating people of colour, then you could say that you're not racist. But if we take a step back and realise actually these systems in play work for some people and don't work for others, and it tends to be along race lines, then you can start to go, actually, there's some work to do here. And we're not all going to be experts at it, but it's starting that journey is really important, isn't it?
It's huge.
And so is that you're guiding people along that process?
Yeah, it is. So and really important to mention that although I coach people on diversity, equity and inclusion, I'm not the person to teach them exactly what that is. Because I'm cis hetero. I'm a white female, straight female. I don't have experienced life as a person of colour. I don't have experience as a marginalised person. I'm not part of the rainbow community, so I can't speak for them. I've got nothing going against me other than the fact that traditionally I've been smashed by the patriarchy. And I do pretty well at holding my own on that. So it's, and until you've walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, you're not the person to teach. So I can open somebody's eyes about it, but they need to go and explore that themselves with the right people to teach them.
I think that's a really good point too, that, I mean, in my experience, Pākehā are more likely to listen to someone who's Pākehā when saying this stuff, because it's harder to dismiss that as whining or, you know, all of those things that we place on others who are different from us. And yet you're also saying, well, now I've introduced them to this, then it's time to point them in other directions.
And the important thing too is that you need to pay for that expertise, because it's not fair. You're actually just perpetuating that burden on, if you're going to go and you want to learn some Māori, then you need to go and pay a Māori translator. You need to pay somebody who professionally does this and not expect your Māori friends to step up and do the karakia. Just because they're Māori doesn't mean that they're the token person to do it. Same goes for, and I talk a lot about the Māori journey because it's really important that we focus that they are Indigenous people, so we need to look at it from that angle. But what's good for Māori is good for everybody. So not just asking your Māori friends, don't do the same thing to your gay friends, don't ask them.
I had an experience of that where I was quite early in my journey of understanding what it meant for someone to be trans, and then someone who I know actually became non-binary, or didn't become non-binary. It became clear that they were non-binary, and I wanted to know a bit more about that. So I emailed them and said, hey, would you mind sharing your journey with me? And then didn't hear anything back, while I then went and did, some of my own work, and then came back to them like a year later and was like, I'm so sorry for having emailed you that, because it just wasn't fair.
No.
And they responded going, yeah, kind of felt like that at the time, didn't know how to respond, because actually this isn't that big a deal to me. Might be to you, but actually, I didn't need that. And so it's that whole thing of going, how can we learn and become educated without being a burden? And I like what you're saying about actually, you might need to actually put your money where your mouth is on that and pay for some education, pay the people who have gone, actually, I'm going to create some stuff to help you along this, because then you're not going to be the sort of person that's adding extra weight to your mates, or to the people that you know. They might not even be your mates, but they're someone you know who fits this box. If you come in, you'll make us look better, you'll help me,
Yeah.
but actually I'm just marginalising you again,
Yeah.
because I'm taking.
Yeah. And it's that constant, we even talking, we've both had to check ourselves on our language.
Yeah.
I say allow, I actually mean enable, because allowing is just that smashing them down even more.
Yeah.
It's a constant learning journey that we're on, and it's a deeply uncomfortable learning journey. And I'll challenge people, and if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, they'll quite often say I get into wee spats with people, because I'll correct somebody on something, and it always comes with a place of actually gently. But if they're going to challenge on it, then I'm going to throw it back again. And I quite often get, well, maybe your ancestors were like that, but yeah, well, actually, I don't know what my ancestors were like, because I've never actually met them. And history, there's always two sides to it. If we go, and I guess this is a bit of a diversion, but if you go and look through the history of the wars, and you'll see that there's always a monument to some white person who's done great stuff, and the Māori were horrible, horrible people. But actually, if you dig into it, you'll invariably find that there was a reason that there was a bit of a massacre there, and it wasn't the Māori's fault. It's just that we've put people up on a pedestal that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I've got a friend who, in his, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s, started exploring what it meant for him to be Māori, because he'd basically been raised Pākehā. And he said, I got taught at school that Hone Heke cut down the flagpole. I didn't get taught that he cut it down because it was on his land.
Yeah, or that he provided it.
Yeah. And so, there's all this extra stuff around the outside of it that actually...
We whitewash.
We don't know, because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to tell it in a way that doesn't have that uncomfortable stuff in it.
And it's human nature, right? So the one thing I really want to stress to anybody on this journey, if you are brave enough to acknowledge and stand up in the face of what it means to be Pākehā, and acknowledge all of the shit that goes with it, if you're going to unpack that, it's going to hurt. You are going to be uncomfortable. You're going to want to scream and cry. Not my family, but acknowledging it is a good start, and you are going to be fine. It's going to hurt, but you're going to be fine. And bigger than that, the people that learn from your journey mean that more people will be fine.
How's all this been received by your clients?
Incredibly well. So I tell people from the start, there's a few things when people work with me. One, that's usually going to be a child at most meetings. My whānau always come first. In fact, Darcy's standing waving out of the window right at the moment. And two, I'm going to talk about topics that's going to make them uncomfortable. And I've only had one person not come back to me. And that's because I challenged an ideology that they were stating in a meeting. And yeah, they've not come back to me again. They've not responded. But I'm not for everyone. It's their journey just as much as mine. But no, most of them are really good, and once they start to unpack it, there's a lot more learning. Majority of the clients I work with actually enrolled in the same classes that I do, which is cool. It's nice to know that I can spread that awareness, play that small part on their journey.
So what sort of difference have you seen it make for businesses that you're taking them on this sort of journey of inclusion, of equity, all of that?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Most of them put in place firm policies. I've had a few who've realised that they weren't in the right stage of their journey to be doing what they wanted to do, and so they've gone back to basics. It's very early days for majority of them. I've only been doing this with them for a couple of years. But most of them, they've got really good foundations. They speak up more. I see them actually correcting other people. They learn to pronounce words correctly, and they challenge others. And in challenging others, they're challenging their own behaviour. I think I give them some bravery, the knowledge that they are enough and they can do this. Most of them want to create change. And so I guess I allow them to be real, and they take that step. There's some are still sitting on the fence, they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it opens up business for them. I've got a long-term client who's she's Māori as well, and I didn't know that when I first started working with her, because she's white passing, and she's getting braver, which is awesome. She's totally embraced the fact that she is Māori. She speaks about it now. She's actively learning te reo. She's learning her culture, so she doesn't just go and support Māori. She is Māori, and she is rocking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I like that too, when the white Western way of doing it is to say, oh, I'm a percentage Māori.
Oh, no.
Whereas they're just like, no, well, I'm Māori.
Yeah.
I whakapapa or descend from this place. And yeah, I think that's really cool to see people like this friend that I was saying before about Honehiki, his realisation that he was Māori has changed his whole life.
Yeah.
And actually he's been employed by the Anglicans in New Plymouth to run a bicultural centre.
Cool.
And that's his life work now, is educating people on the history of Aotearoa, particularly as it connects with the church, which is full of good and bad. And him going, actually, we've got to own this.
Yeah.
As he's saying, as people of the church, we've got to own this. That this is our history.
Yeah.
Can't say it's not my history. This is what the people that we're standing on the shoulders of did. And so to see people like your client just embracing their identity, I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool. So there's always challenges on it too. And I've got another client she is Māori. You can tell she's Māori. She's not white passing, but she's one who's not had the language.
Yep.
She's not had it with her, and so others challenge her on that. And that's painful for them. That's really painful for them. So it's not without its challenges. But being able to be here and to be able to say, not that you need me to say it, but you've got whakapapa, you're Māori. That should be enough. And to be able to support that with real business tools for them, that's kind of cool. I like being able to play that small part.
Yeah. I love that like you said, you focus on businesses who want to do an impact. But I love that you're having an impact in terms of, creating this equity and whatever, while you're helping them to have an impact. So it's, you're practicing what you preach as you're doing it, which is, you're not just going in and here's the 5 steps to this,
no.
So that's really cool. What sort of impact focuses have some of your clients got? What sort of things are we talking about?
Oh,
is it all around Māori stuff, or is it really diverse?
It's really diverse. So I've got one. Mental health appears to be quite a strong theme. So I've got one who focuses on the community aspect of what they do and giving back. I've got another one who works with intimate partner violence. There's the marginalised communities, so providing voices to marginalised communities, so providing that support on a more equitable basis than others would. There are support for disabled people, so making sure that they have an accessible future. I've got rainbow clients. I've got somebody who wants to empower others to live their best life, and they do that for a variety of means. And so there's no... They're trying to be more culturally responsible, and it's only as they work through their process, because they also work in the area of intimate partner violence, that they realise that they are lacking. And so for them it's not just a fact that they actually may not get some contracts. It's actually, oh my God, I didn't realise that we weren't doing it this way, we weren't doing that right. Health is changing, so there's a couple of health clients. Yeah, they're all over the place. So no, it's not all Māori, but there's always a basis to it.
Yeah. Why I wanted to ask you that is because there's just such a myriad of ways that we can do good in the world.
Oh my gosh, so much.
And to hear even that small breadth of stuff, is really encouraging to me, that there's people seeing things that they're like, actually, that's not right.
No.
I'm going to do something about that. Or going, actually, how can I create more happiness or more joy for these kind of people? Or
Yeah, and that's biggest thing I want people to know is that you don't have to create a charity to create good in the world. You can go out and you can create a 7-8 figure dollar business, and you can make more of an impact than if you are slaving your guts out, creating a charity and giving everything to people. Because when you're making money, then you've got fulfillment in there. You've got the ability to actually fund what you want to do. And if you want to give back by donating money, that's one way to do it, but there are so many more ways than that. You can donate your time. You can create more equity for people by opening spaces up. You don't have to give money to create impact. You don't have to work your guts out volunteering your time to create impact. Yeah. Sometimes it's the hardest thing because people see how hard you work and you're never going to get anybody else to take over your space. Yeah. That's the fastest way to burn yourself out and your organisation, because nobody's going to put their hand up to work for nothing all hours of the day and night. Make some money off it, pay people what they're worth, and we should, right? If you're running a charitable organisation and you're talking about creating equity for people, then why wouldn't you pay the people that are helping you to do that? Otherwise you're being hypocritical.
It's interesting, actually. This has come up repeatedly this year, particularly on the podcast. Talking to Age Palmer from Eddington Coffee, and they are a business.
Yes,
they've set up as a business. They've then branched out into several other businesses, and they're doing good through that.
Yeah.
Through providing money, but also through networking, through being a place that can sell the things that ladies over in India are making. Yep. So they're financially supporting that, but then they're seeing the community change over there, and then they're being a place over here that can actually start to sell on behalf of them. And earlier I talked to Stephen Moe, who's a lawyer.
Yep. Sounds great.
And he's even looking at, well, how can we create a legal category? Because there's kind of nothing sitting between charitable status and straight out business. Mm-hmm. But what if we had something in the middle that gave people incentive to want to do that? But
because it's quite hard to set up that hybrid model as well.
Yeah.
And when I talked in the beginning about motivation, and Turo Kawa and Amy's journey, and at that stage that we signed up, they were a social enterprise, and they were doing it, and people would pay a small amount, a very small amount for te reo Māori lessons, and then that money would go to do things. They actually have a thriving business now. They charge decent money for courses that are accessible online, but they still have that social model, and they still gift things to people. Yeah. They're still supporting to revitalise that language, and it's just the proof that you don't have to give everything away. You can actually charge what you're worth, make a decent income, and still have that thriving impact.
Mm. Yeah. What's one of your favourite parts of this journey?
When people get it, when you see that realisation dawn, whatever it is, and they go and they put it into play. And that can be so broad, but for me it's when people stop questioning themselves so much over whether they're worth it, and whether the impact they're going to make is worth it, because it's always worth it. It's always worth it. Yeah. When people realise that they can actually make money out of what they're doing, when you can monetise what you're doing to create that impact, that's worth it. Yeah. There are so many moments to it, but it's always that part when people realise that it doesn't have to be that hard and that overwhelming, and they start to listen. So I've had one last week, and I've been saying the same thing to her for a year now, and then she spoke to somebody else, and she came back and went, okay, right, they just said the same thing you do. So are we going to stop seeking those quick wins now, and we're going to do what you said we're going to do, Sel.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. People have got to go on their own journey.
Yeah.
And you've got to be there to support them. But
yeah.
When they realise it's awesome, because then things skyrocket. You
said right at the start that part of what got you onto the journey you're on now is setting up a trust yourself. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us a little bit what that was?
Yeah.
If you don't mind me digging in. I know it wasn't an easy journey for you, but what was that about, and what's that become now?
I think when Darcy was 3, a friend of ours was diagnosed with brain tumour, and it turned out to actually be terminal brain cancer. His wife was pregnant, So that with their second child, and all of a sudden she was faced with the future with this diagnosis that he may not actually be there for the birth of that baby. But while that was hard, it was the loss of his income overnight and also her income overnight, because all of a sudden she had to care for him. So not only was she facing a future without her life partner, without the parents to her children, without the father to the children, there was no income. They had a mortgage, she had a business, and they didn't qualify for any support because in our beautiful system, they were financially secure because they had a house that, even though they could no longer pay for it, they had a house, they had assets, they had wealth, and they had insurance, but the insurers were not keen to pay out either. There's nothing in our system, unless you have a very set diagnosis that falls within the criteria the government puts in place, you don't qualify for support. Now she's intelligent, she was very clued up, and she couldn't navigate the journey very well. What hope do people have who haven't got that experience? Anyway, we rallied around them and wanted to use our skills. I say we because there was a whole group, it wasn't just me. And we wanted to use our skills to be able to support them. There wasn't a huge amount we could do. People were throwing money at them, they were throwing information at them, and it was just overwhelming for her. So I suggested that we set up an organisation to filter some of that, and we did. We filtered all the fundraising, all of the information, and organised meals and stuff through that. And when things started to look like they were coming right for them, so when their insurance paid out and they realised that actually they had a bit more time than they thought, they asked us to formalise that and turn it into a charity. And so the Tahu Hikaroa Foundation has been a charity for a few years now, and we support brain tumour patients in need of support. Now that's important to stipulate, that it's brain tumour patients and not brain cancer patients, because if you have cancer, there are a lot of organisations that support you. But if you have a brain tumour, and a lot of them will be cancer, but because of the place, not many are diagnosed that way because it's dangerous surgery. So brain tumour, it's a neurological condition, it impacts your ability to work, it impacts your mood, your personality, and it means that invariably the caregiver has to give up their income as well too. So we provide practical support by basically funding them what they need. Right. We're not a big organisation, but we provide practical support. We provide groceries or cleaning or just the little things that help get them through, and we connect them to other places that can help them along their journey too. We've got Joe is Tahu's widow. Tahu passed away, over a year ago now, and he left a legacy, and she's continuing that legacy. So we've got his name. His wife is sharing his love.
Awesome.
Yeah, and she talks practically from her journey as well. Really long answer to your question again.
Oh, no, that's... yeah.
Yeah. My burnout on that one was that I was the person who set up, who drove the setup of it, and because I didn't have the full-time job, I could work around everything, I just threw myself into it. And everybody else was there to support what I needed, but I was the one that was doing. And
when it's someone you emotionally care about as well, that's on top of all the work stuff, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. But we were all friends and family. So there's five of us. Yeah, 5 of us. You can't joke. Okay, Lou. So I've got Kat, Lou, Dan, myself, and then Joe. So Dan is Tahu's brother. Lou is one of his oldest friends. Kat was the coach of his football team, and a really good friend, and me. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to do things for them.
Yeah, so this is then something good that, having gone through that experience together, you can help other people who are in that same situation to be able to not have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
The way that you guys did.
Yeah, so same. I mean, I taught people for years on what they need to do in their compliance stuff. what they had to do from a business standpoint, from a legal organisation standpoint, but actually walking that journey and realising that putting it all together wasn't as simple as that. I mean, my days were spent contacting people, anybody that I could, to get some help, because it's not just about funding it, it's about getting the practical support that you need along your journey. Who's your network, who you're advocating for. Dealing with the patient journey was stressful, because I was usually the one that was contacting the people that was needing support, and it was hard, and we were all too close to it. And when Tahu died, none of us wanted to do anything with it either, and we all had the guilt, which just, that's part of the journey too. We should be doing this, but we can't. I can't face it. And so realising that we needed to do something, we all decided we wanted out, but none of us wanted to let go. So it was then that we talked about, actually, we need to bring Jo in. And actually it turns out she wanted to be part of it. We'd all been sheltering her, but she really wanted to be doing this. And she's doing an incredible job. So she's now our front-facing person, which is good, because she's walked this journey. Yeah. So instead of the rest of us trying to read a million articles, trying to understand what people are talking about, she's been along it, because she's taken Tahu through it, she's taken herself through it, and she's still in that community. The rest of us shut it all down, but it gives her something. So it's nice, and we're getting there. We're coming back out of our fog.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Oh, thank you so much for taking time to talk today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your focus on doing good in the world and helping others to do the same. Thank you for what you're doing to help to bring a bit of heaven down to earth.
Thank you.
Hello, hello heaven. Will I hear you whisper to come near?
I love how Sel says, for me it's when people stop questioning themselves so much over whether they're worth it and whether the impact they're going to make is worth it, because it's always worth it. How good that in a kōrero about business, we get right back to people's value as people. Sel hasn't lost sight of the fact that in the end, this is about people. Sel, thank you for challenging us and encouraging us to keep working on ourselves and the spaces over which we hold influence. Here is a blessing for you. Sel, may you continue to find joy in seeing people and businesses you are working with realizing their dreams of making an impact, and may you continue to attract like-minded people to share this journey with. May you continue to find ways in which you can learn and grow as you look to ensure all are welcomed and all are valued. And may the people and businesses you work with thrive from their own journeys as you lovingly challenge them towards a better way. May you feel the support of your whānau and your community, knowing that you are not alone in this good work, but that there are many cheering you on. May your children be blessed as they grow up seeing a world where others matter, where inclusion is a way of life, and where doing good in the world is just what we do. And lastly, may you know you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Thanks to Strahan for the music and Rangi for the karakia. Join me next time when I talk to Hannah Hardy-Jones about the KITE program, an app that grew out of her experience with postpartum bipolar disorder after the birth of her first child. We talk about that experience, about how the app came to be, what difference it's making now and is capable of making in the future, and her desire to see people's mental health nurtured and supported. Until then, me inoi tātou.
E tō mātou matua I te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tau mai tō rangatiratanga, kia mea te tau e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua, kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. Humai kia mātou ai nei, he taro mā mātou mō tēnei rā. Mura o mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei I o te hunga, e hara ana kia mātou. Aua hoki mātou e kawea, kia whakawaia, Engari whakaorangi a mātou I te kino. Amen.